Good morning, grade 10s. Welcome to our overview of and suggestions for your literature exam coming up in June. On your assessment planner, it is listed as task 6.2, but you'll note as your literature exam. Remember that this is being recorded and you'll be able to go through it again at your leisure once it is uploaded onto your OLP. So please feel welcome to do so at a later stage again. So what can you expect in your exam paper? All right, remember all your poetry that you've studied thus far can be asked in this exam. And then obviously as far as you've read in your novel, Rock Face, that can be asked of you as well. You will have 2.5 hours in which to complete your questions and your mark allocation is 70. So you have more than enough time in which to complete everything in this session. I do believe that going into your exam, you need to be as prepared as possible. So I'd like to give you a reminder of the types of question words that you can expect. You are in grade 10 now, so we are looking for a more sophisticated, more mature answer. So at least once in each section, you're going to have one of these more critical thinking question words. And I'd like you to just be comfortable knowing what you need to, how you need to answer these types of questions. So take a look through the table at a later stage. Words like compare and contrast are probably important for you, and to justify your answer or substantiate your answer is something that is definitely going to come up for you in your exam. I also want to stress at this point that you need to trust your study guides, grade 10s. The notes and activities that you have on your poetry and on your novel are comprehensive and are perfectly suited to prepare you for your upcoming exams. So if you've left anything out up until now, I would suggest you go back and make the effort to complete all of those activities. They are there for a reason. They've been designed in that way specifically to prepare you for your upcoming exams. I also like you to not be daunted by anything coming up in your exam. So I like you to know what your instructions are. So please take a moment to go through the instructions. Make sure you understand what is expected of you. More specifically, I want to stress to you, grade 10s, that I'd love for you to answer every question, even if you're unsure about your answer. Please don't leave out an answer because it's very difficult to look for an answer if there's nothing there. Rather take a chance and write your answer down. You never know, you might just get some mark. Please start each new section on a new page for me. So not each question, just each new section on a new page. It just makes it easy for your marker to navigate through your answer sheets. And if you've forgotten something and you've left out an answer, it gives you some space at the end of each section to catch that up for us. Please remember as well that you need to write in a dark pen so that when it is scanned in and uploaded to us as a PDF, that it comes out relatively dark on our side. Otherwise, it is so faint, we're unable to see your answers properly. And I want you to also keep your answers in the same order that we've given it to you in the question paper. Even if there's an error in the numbering, rather keep to the same numbering as your question paper. Right, so what can you expect in your exam? Your first section will be your contextual around your novel, Rock Face. So I want you to go from about page 66 in your literature study guide and make sure that you've gone through all of the activities and the theory that is there. Remember, again, like I've said, these activities have been designed to ensure you are practicing the critical thinking skills that you need at this point in grade 10. So I thought I would just give you some of my thoughts around your novel, all right? They do, I'm sure, touch on some of the things that you've come across so far. I think when it comes to some of the themes, you can definitely see the love theme coming through. What are the relationships between the different characters? Who's attracted to who? Can love, the symbolism of love, motivate somebody perhaps to overcome a fear, to do something that was challenging to them before? Do you think that the theme of role models and what impact your teachers can have on you is something to think about? Think of the influence that some of these people have over the kids. What about Chris? How does influence like this change a person's life? the theme of fear, and then how to learn to control it. Think about how Sean develops throughout the story. Are there any other characters who experience a change like this? And then obviously the more hard-hitting theme of sexism, perhaps. Who are the characters who challenge the usual norms of stereotypes and things like that? Think of some examples of sexism that have come up in your novel, which characters can be linked to it, and when do they behave in a way that links to this idea. Right, your second part of your exam refers you to a poetry, so from about page 47 of your study guide. I've also listed some of the important things that you can do. You can take each of your scene poems and you can find these answers linked to these ideas per poem. So have your poetry set out and then go and find the theme of each of your poems. So what is the main idea, the message that the poet was trying to get across in each of those poems? You can look at its form. How is it structured? What type of a poem is it? Is it a sonnet? Does it have 14 lines? Or is it just a free verse poem? You can look at the type of words that the poet has used. Are there repeated words? Do these repeated words have some significance in the poem? And you can look at the poet's attitude in each of your poems. Can you pick up on what the poet's attitude is? Think about how the poet may have read the poem himself, all right? Imagery, we are talking poetry here, grade 10, so you're going to look at any figures of speech, any literary devices that have been used to help us picture the ideas that the poet was bringing across for us. And then obviously rhyme and rhythm come into play. Is there a rhyme scheme? Is there a pattern of rhyming words? Are all the rhyming words at the end of a line? So is it end rhyme? Things like that. How is pace brought about in the poem? Is it because there's certain punctuation marks that are used? Or is it because there's enjambment, so run-on lines being used to help create a faster pace when we read it? Take each of these terms and link them to something in each of your poems. All right, when it comes to the unseen poems, sometimes you need a little help thinking about these things. So perhaps zone in on the title of the poem. Read the poem at least twice, all right? Don't think you can get away with not reading the poem. Then take a look at each stanza. So you look at the title, look at the whole poem, and now go to each stanza. Does the poem flow from one stanza to the next? Are there a certain number of stanzas? How many lines are there in each stanza? Are the stanzas perhaps made up of 3 lines, so it's a tercet? Is there 2 lines, so it's a couplet? Are there quatrains? Those are things that you can think about, remind yourselves of before going into your exam. What type of words have been used? Are there phrases that have been repeated? Is this linked to the message that the poet is reinforcing for us? You can look at the mood or the tone of the poem. Is this brought about because of the imagery that's been described? Is there a deeper underlying meaning there, your connotation? Or is it just very easy to understand like a dictionary meaning? What is the poet's purpose in writing this poem? What message is he trying to bring through to us? And grade 10s, I would suggest you try and control the things you do know. You do know what different types of figures of speech can come up in a poem. You know what sound devices are, like onomatopoeia. You know that you get different types of poems. And you can understand the question words. So go back to my list of question words. Make sure you understand what's expected from them. So what does an actual exam look like? So for the purposes of this presentation, I've used a past paper. But now the poetry might be different to what's on your poetry list for this year. That's fine. Use all the poetry in this practice paper then as practice for unseen poetry. Okay. So your first section of your exam paper focuses you on your novel. We'll give you an extract from the novel and we'll then ask you questions around it. So let's have a look at 1 or 2 significant questions here. Question 3 asks you to compare Sean's description of Tamsin with that of the common school consensus. So first of all, we're checking that you know the plot of the story, but we're asking you to compare. So to find the similarities, or you might come up with some differences. Question 5 says to quote to prove that Tamsin was not just a beautiful face. So remember, that's the theme of stereotyping, but we're also asking you to quote. So you need to quote correctly. Go and find a phrase or a word or something that shows that she's not just a beautiful face, and then put it into your inverted commas. Question 9 is your critical thinking question. It says critically comment on the theme of love and relationships. So critically comment means you need to provide your answer and find the link between the themes of love and relationships and find evidence either from the extract we've given you or from elsewhere in the novel that you can remember. So you might not be able to quote fully then, but you can paraphrase. You can use your own words to describe that moment in the plot from somewhere else in the novel. Right. Your next section will always give you 2 extracts from your novel. Right. We've got to make it meaty. So question 11 there says identify a synonym. All right, so although we're asking you to find your own word that means the same, we want you to find a word that will fit in the sentence and make sense. So go back to the original sentence, put your word into it and see that it makes sense. Question 14 asks you to compare the girl's reaction. So here you need to give the differences and similarities again. Question 17 says, do you think men are better rock climbers than women? So here's your stereotype theme coming out. And although you can give your opinion, you need to base your answer on what you've read in the novel so far. You can't just give your opinion. Justify means give your answer, elaborate on it, but find evidence from the text to support it. Question 18 again is a critical question, critically comment on. All right, so you need to explain the importance of that theme of self-knowledge and then give evidence from either this extract or from elsewhere in the novel again. Remember, you don't have your novel with you for this exam, so you can remember stuff, you can recall stuff that you've read so far. Right, your section B is your poetry section. All right, so this is where you will have in your preparation taken all of those terms and gone through each of the poems for it. So let's look at the type of question you can expect here as well. Question 2.1 says list 2 ways. You can literally go find those answers in the poem. Question 3, identify 1 word. Go and find that word from the poem itself. Don't go make up your own word. Question 4 says, explain the significance of aeroplanes flying overhead. So significance, what is its symbolism? What's its importance? What is it helping the reader to imagine? Question 9, again, critically comment on the last line. In other words, explain the significance of the last line and give evidence from the poem to support it. Question 10 there says, if this poem were ever sung, what type of music do you think could be appropriate background music? So base your answer on what you know about the poet and the poem. Justify your answer, provide evidence from the poem to support what your opinion is. Your second poem, all right, again, will probably follow in chronological order to the plot, to the poem itself. Question 2 there says, give a reason why the structure of the poem is regarded as ironic. So now you need to note structure. Remember in your prompts beforehand, I said to you, think about how poets can structure their poetry. What type of stanzas will they use? So here you must give a reason why this structure is ironic. So you need to show that you understand what the word ironic means. Then you're going to comment on the structure. You'll notice it's 2-line stanzas, and you're going to give a reason why you think the poet used that structure. Question 3.3 says, list 4 examples of lavender repeated as a motif in the poem. So we're assuming you know what a motif is. It's a repeated symbol. 4 examples from the poem that show a repeated symbol. Question 9 there says, critically comment on the impact of smallpox. So you're going to explain how smallpox would affect those Indigenous people and give evidence from the poem to support your answer. So grade 10s, I hope that I've covered any questions you might have had leading up to your June exam for your literature. I'm sure that I've given you some things to think about. Take time beforehand to go through everything so that when you go into your exam, you can get this. All right. I have no doubt that our study guides are more comprehensive and contain enough thoughts for you to be as best prepared for your exam coming up. Greetings, all the best, and I'll chat to you again later.